Okay, welcome back, Dole TV Season 3, Episode 1. We have household charges.
Check.
We have political satire.
Check.
We have Noam Chomsky.
No check. Noam Chomsky cancelled.
No Noam Chomsky.
No Noam Chomsky.
Fucking diva. Anyway, let's lay the truth on these people.
You're after getting all of my hair, Dean.
Fucking professionals.
Well, Season 2 didn't get rid of the IMF, Jobsbridge or Jedward, but we're going to try again in Season 3. Except this time, we've got a secret weapon.
Your secret weapon looks an awful lot like a cabbage there, Aoifa.
This is not just a cabbage. This is a symbol of resistance. This is like Che Guevara.
Yeah, this Che Guevara looks like he has headlights, you mad thing.
No, he's not, he's grand. Anyway, this will all make sense in a minute. Watch this.
Parce que je crois vraiment que l'Union économique et monétaire.
In order to give certainty to the markets, the Irish government has agreed to stand aside in favour of this cabbage.
Well, now, the cabbage itself is a Savoy cabbage, which would be certainly one of the more statesman-like cabbages, to my mind, anyway. It was grown in a field in Kilnashbick under the full supervision of the ECB. The actual state functions now with the cabbage will be carried out by Derek Mooney as a kind of an honorary cabbage or an assistant cabbage to the executive cabbage kind of a thing.
Well, I think we need to move on from the fact that it is a cabbage. I mean, it is a cabbage that's got the full backing of the markets. It's got the full support of the ECB. It's a firefighting cabbage, no doubt. I mean, it's a crisis cabbage. And it's certainly the type of cabbage that Jim Larkin would have been had he been a cabbage. Which in fact he was. Vincent, let me finish. No, Jim Larkin was a 25-ounce bok choy cabbage and he died of club root. And I mean, any historian worth his salt in this state will back me up on that.
Due to energy shortages, we're closing down early tonight. So it just remains for me to say, Ihawa, Kulasov, Viva Draghi, and God save the cabbage.
You all right there, pal? The heading you. Now, the household charges has been one of the most contentious austerity measures so far. In a moment, we'll be chatting to Mark Hoskins from the campaign against household charges and water taxes. But first, we're going to watch a little information video.
1.8 million households were required by law to pay the household charge by the March 31st deadline. The government says this new tax, starting at €100 per household, is needed to help fund local services. However, opponents argue that the charge, which is levied at the same rate for everyone, regardless of the value of their home, is unfair and will disproportionately affect the least well-off. A boycott campaign against the charge has garnered support throughout the country, culminating in a rally attended by 3,000 people at the National Stadium in Dublin on March 24th.
Indeed, we are seeing from Phil Hogan and his Fine Gael party now the true face of a party that was founded in cooperativist authoritarianism. They haven't changed from that party was founded. And this message must go to every corner of the country. Must not fear the government. The government must fear the people when they are speaking.
So welcome back. I'm here with Mark Hoskins. How are you, Mark?
How's it going, Dean?
Mark's from the campaign against household and water taxes. Now, Mark, welcome to the show. And as you've heard in that report, the government claimed that the revenue raised by these taxes will go funding local authorities. Now, it's a relatively small charge, about 100 quid. What's your position on that?
Well, I think, you know, already in the budget last year, there was already 170 million cut from the local authority fund. Now, if every person who is liable for the household tax pays it, that still won't cover the cut that's already been made. The idea of austerity is kind of abstract to a lot of people, and I think this tax is kind of the first thing. It's made a direct link between austerity and people's everyday lives, and you do see that on the doors. Like, I mean, I try to have a very conversational approach and try and find out what people's issues are other than the tax, you know, where they're coming from. And generally you just hear that, you know, people can't pay their bills anymore. They're worried about being able to send their kids to school, about being able to pay their car tax, all these things. And that's where they're drawing the link to austerity. They know they've been screwed already.
Which is a nice approach, which is what politicians should be doing. But what they're doing, what the government are saying is, if you don't pay it, there's going to be sanctions. Do you think people are afraid of those sanctions?
I think some people. I think there has been a lot of intimidation, particularly. I think kind of elderly people have felt intimidated. I know I've spoken to some who thought they might go to jail, you know, be brought to court and all that. But and I think it's quite interesting that has happened. I mean, if the campaign was going around intimidating elderly people, the media would slaughter us. But you know, there's the government doing it like tax.
And do you think with the opposition, do you think there's a bit of a fight back grown? Because there hasn't been a great fight back for any austerity measures. You know, there's been you know, the Dame Street kind of stuff. But in general, people haven't fought back.
Yeah, I think it goes back to that whole idea of linking austerity to something that hits people straight in the pocket. You know, it affects their everyday lives. And I think one of the amazing things about this campaign is that, like, certainly in my time as an activist, it's the first one that's been organised on a national scale. And I've heard a lot of people saying, you know, it's the biggest mass boycott since the Land League, which is, you know, incredibly significant. But I think one of the reasons why you haven't had much resistance to austerity so far is that we don't really have organisations capable of fighting against austerity. You know, the trade unions are locked into partnership and the Croke Park Agreement and all these things, so their methods are very bureaucratic. You know, there's no kind of instruction coming from the base of the unions, and I think this organisation has the potential to grow beyond a campaign against an individual tax. So
after this campaign, after the 31st deadline, after people don't pay it, what then? It
kind of will depend. I mean, what happens after the 31st depends on whether the government back down a bit or whether they just go straight out after people. I suppose if they back down, it's going to be more of the same. We're going to be trying to get people to continue not to register and not to pay. If they start bringing people to court, we're going to have to organise legal defence, protests in court, around courtrooms, just like during the anti-water tax campaign, where the campaign against the water tax disrupted court proceedings to the extent where the government just had to drop it, like, because the courts were getting clogged up. Great stuff, Mark. It's been great having you in. Great stuff. If you want to get involved in the campaign against household and water taxes, the details are on the screen now.
Big Phil Hogan here, Minister for Sneaky Taxes. I'm very concerned about you lads. I'm going to sing a song for you now. Pay your household charge, or I will find the ass of you. Pay up now, or the lot of you will be criminalised. Pay your €100, regardless if you're rich or poor. It pays for the roadworks and traffic cones. Well, you're supporting local services there now. Ditch clearing and roadworks, traffic cones, fact-finding missions out to Singapore for the councillors. You know, a lot of good work gets done at local level. Fork out for it now. Go on. Thank you. And here's a picture of me pussy, just in case you wanted something cute. You're great men altogether.
People like, whole firm like, no need to pay this household charge like, don't believe the government like. They're not going to come round knocking on your doors like, looking for the money like, embarrassing you in front of your family like you're a penny pinching Aegis who hadn't a clue. They're not going to do that like. There's millions of us. None of us are going to pay like. Don't pay the household charge. Can't pay, won't pay. Whole firm people. Whole firm.
Hi, I have a non-threatening regional accent. On May 31st, the government will ask you to vote on the Fiscal Stability Treaty. This impartial video has been produced to help you make an informed decision. What the fuck is your problem? Do you know what's going to happen if you vote no? Have you ever seen Mad Max, have you? Have you ever been to Longford? Do you want to get us kicked out of the EU? Is that what yous are at? Do you want to go back to being a black speck of TB on the lungs of Europe? Because that'll be the end of it, boy. No more Aldi, no more Lidl, no more Papa, no more Nicole. And that suave fucker from the Kerrygold ads, he'll be out the door like someone's pissed in his butter. It'll be paedophile priests and Aaron sweaters drinking cuddle out of your potholes till the end of your days. And I'm not exaggerating. There'll be AIDS pouring out of the ATMs if you bog brains vote against this. You muppets.
Now we're going to have a short educational video.
Woohoo! It's not the one about the guy with the beard telling us where babies come from, is it? Because I seen that one in school.
No, like this one's about 4.5 million people getting screwed.
Yes!
Ladies and gentlemen, we present
Dole TV's Guide to Nama.
Dun, dun, dun.
Over the next 8 years, NAMA will transfer up to €37 billion of our money to banks and major property developers. The purpose of this video is to explain why NAMA came about, whose interests it serves, and how you ended up footing the bill. In 2009, the Irish government set up the National Asset Management Agency in order to stabilise the banking system, get credit flowing, and recapitalise the banks. In fact, NAMA has done none of these things, nor was it designed to. To explain its real purpose, we have to go back to the US subprime loan crisis of 2007. During this crisis and the credit crunch that followed it, banks stopped lending to one another, causing the entire banking system to seize up. The effect of the US credit crunch on Irish banks can be compared to a tsunami. Just before a tsunami strikes land, the water on the shoreline begins to recede rapidly, a sure warning of what's to come. In September 2008, the government took heed of this warning and issued a blanket guarantee on all bank deposits and covered bonds. The total sum guaranteed by the Irish government came to €400 billion. The aim of this guarantee was to protect 6, effectively insolvent, Irish banks from the oncoming wave. Once protected, these banks needed to get rid of their bad loans. And this is where NAMA came in. NAMA allowed the banks to swap €74.3 billion in bad property-related loans for €32 billion in secure government-backed bonds. Leading figures in Irish business, politics and media have been eager to lay the blame for NAMA at the feet of the general population. But is there any basis to this? Did we all, in fact, party? The total mortgage debt of Irish householders currently stands at €87 billion. Not one single cent of this debt is held in NAMA. Instead, most of the assets handled by NAMA are high-value commercial properties, bought by the very biggest developers at the height of the boom. The argument that the Irish people were responsible for the collapse of the property bubble simply doesn't stand up. So can NAMA's business plan actually work? An important fact to remember is that the value of any property depends on the level of economic activity which goes on around it. As billions upon billions of euros are wrenched from the Irish economy to pay off banks and bondholders, the value of the properties held by NAMA actually decreases, making it impossible for the state to sell them on at a profit. But if neither the taxpayer nor the state can possibly benefit from NAMA, why is it allowed to exist? The answer lies in the nature of economic and political power in Ireland. The major players in the Irish economy, banks, stockbrokers, property speculators, produce little of actual rather than speculative value. Instead, these businesses skim their wealth from the profits of multinational corporations, which are laundered through Ireland's taxation system on their way in and out of the country. These middlemen are deeply embedded in the political system, influencing government policy-making through their economic power. Because they make their money from property speculation and the tax avoidance of multinationals, Ireland's national economic policy has been shaped to meet these needs. When this business model collapses, as it did in 2008, the middlemen need the state to step in and protect their wealth. NAMA and the bank guarantee are the latest examples of this. We hope that this video has gone some way to explaining why the Irish government chose to place the unsustainable burden of NAMA on your shoulders and whose interests they served by doing so.
So just before we go, I want to mention Rabble. It's available in loads of great locations here, and here's the website. And that's it, Dole TV, season 3, up and running. I enjoyed it, Aoifa enjoyed it.
What did Sheikh Bosh think of it?
I think the cabbage thought there was probably a bit too much politics and it probably lagged a bit in the middle. But, you know, he's a fan of expose on TV3, so, you know, you can't please everybody.
You can't please everybody. Anyway, check out our website at doletv.wordpress.com if you want to get involved in the show, and we'll see you soon.
Savage cabbage.
Bye.